All right, we now welcome Brooke Kennedy for the next presentation. Brooke Kennedy is a proud Gomeroi Yina, which is also a Kamilaroi woman, from Tamworth in New South Wales. Brooke recently completed her PhD, where she worked with communities and organisations to better understand community needs and wants in terms of dog and cat management. With the rise of pet cat numbers in communities, Brooke also completed a 5-month internship with AMRIC to determine best practice management for cats in remote communities. Brooke is now at the University of New England, lecturing in anthrozoology and Indigenous knowledge, and is a chief investigator with the New South Wales RSPCA Keeping Cats Safe at Home project. Welcome, Brooke Kennedy, presenting on Counting Cats, How to Quantify Free-Roaming Cat Populations. That one's forward, that one's back, and that one's
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Counting cats. Some of you may be thinking this doesn't apply to me, but it will in the very near future. Right now, maybe. If I was to ask you how many cats are on this screen, it wouldn't take very long for you to work out that there were 43. It would take you maybe just a little bit longer to count that there were actually 21 individual cats on this slide. 5 of them appeared only once, 10 of them appear twice, and 6 of them appear 3 times. But in reality, I'm sure we're all aware, it isn't this easy. We are trying to quantify cats in areas that look like this. I'm going to give you guys a couple of seconds to see how many cats you can count in this city block. Half a city block. Alrighty, put your hand up if you found at least one cat. Yeah? This guy was pretty easy, yes? Keep your hand up, everybody who counted one. Keep your hand up if you found 2 cats. 3 cats. 4 cats. 5 cats. 6 cats. 7 cats. Excellent, good job. Nobody found 7 cats because there is only 6.
They deserve a prize. Who was it that found the 7 cats?
This man next to the lady in the green shirt, he's not paying attention anymore. We caught you. So, there may be cats on different levels. There may be cats with their owners. There may be cats at even higher levels. There may be cats hiding in the roadworks. And there might also be cats in the bin. 6 cats just on this half a block when we are trying to quantify cats in quite large areas. So, which method do I choose to quantify free-roaming cat populations? I'm not going to answer that just yet, but it is a very important question. I'm going to discuss in the next 15 minutes distance sampling along Transects method and the remote sensing cameras method of quantifying free-roaming cat populations. I was going to give you a quick rundown, but thankfully that's already been done, so we can skip this slide. I am at the University of New England and a chief investigator of the Keeping Cats Safe at Home project, run by the RSPCA, funded by the New South Wales Government Environmental Trust, and we did hear Sylvie talk about this earlier this morning. So I'm going to use the Blue Mountains and the Campbelltown LGAs as a case study to explain my methods. So these are 2 of the 11 LGAs that Sylvie talked about this morning. So the Blue Mountains is one of those LGAs that has a very high national park percentage, whereas Campbelltown only 21% and has a high cat ownership in general, but definitely in relationship to the Blue Mountains. So distance sampling along transects. The transects were 80 kilometres long, and you can see them in these pictures. So these transects were obviously driven and not walked, because that would take forever. And I'm just going to quickly go through the protocols that we used for these transect drives. We did have a rough guess of where these transects would be beforehand, but whatever transect we used on day 1 was recorded, and that was the exact same transect that we drove all the other times, obviously for consistency. They were conducted 4 times in a 7-day period, and at the same time every day as well as the same track, and that was to account for daily variations. You drove at about 30 kilometres per hour, and there is exceptions to this, obviously, where you're on a freeway between suburbs, for example, where it's not obviously safe. So those weren't actually counted in the 80 kilometres. So the Blue Mountains Transect's actually 93 kilometres long, but only 80 kilometres of that was where we were actually spotting to observe free roaming cats. Once you did see a cat, we were only counting free roaming cats, so cats that were seen through windows obviously weren't included. Cats who were outside but on a lead weren't included, or cats observed in a cat enclosure. And then it was perpendicular distance from the vehicle to the cat was recorded for distance sampling, and any other notes. So how many cats were observed? Was it 3 adult cats? Was it 1 cat with 2 kittens, for example, to try and work out the populations. So when you go to analyse this data, there are a few things that you can get using distance sampling. The main thing that we're getting at here is the encounter rate, but I will go through the table and explain it a bit. So the first one here, the residential area, is where we conducted the research, so we didn't go through any industrial estates and things like that, so we're only counting free roaming cats in the residential areas of these 2 LGAs. Again, the effort was an 80 kilometre transect, but obviously you can see either side of that transect all the way along, which gives you the 960 square kilometres. And in the Blue Mountains we counted 75 cats, and that was across the 4 days, so there was the chance that some of those cats were counted at least 4 times, and in Campbelltown 112 cats, which gives you an encounter rate. So in the Blue Mountains, if you were to drive 1 kilometre, you would see approximately 0.9 cats. And if you were driving through Campbelltown for 1 kilometre, you would see 1.4 cats. So obviously a higher chance of seeing a cat in Campbelltown than in the Blue Mountains. Free roaming cat in a residential area, that is. You can also use this data to estimate densities. So again, 0.22 cats per hectare in the Blue Mountains and 0.33 cats per hectare in Campbelltown. And again, you can use that to then estimate abundance of free roaming cat populations in the residential areas of these 2 LGAs. So approximately 360 free roaming cats in the Blue Mountains, and 10 times that, 3,364 cats in Campbelltown. And just a few pictures. Bella in the front left here was an honours student from USyd who assisted with Campbelltown and Blue Mountains, so I just wanted to thank her. And our Transect drives were actually pretty fun. So remote sensing cameras. For this part, we put up 50 cameras in private yards, and that was 50 per LGA, so 100 out at once. We used Swift 3C camera traps because of their quick trigger times, and the cameras were mounted for predators, so to pick up dogs, cats and foxes rather than placed for wildlife, which is why they're a metre off the ground, assisted to point down and angled along tracks at 22 degrees or at a direct object such as a water source or a hole in the fence, for example. They were out for approximately 64 nights, and events were defined as 60 seconds apart. So if a cat disappeared for just 30 seconds and came back, it was still counted as the one. If it went away for at least 60 seconds and came back, it was counted as a second event. So from the camera data, you can obviously get a bit more information than from the Transect drives. You can get, these are event numbers, not individuals, but you can get a range of different species and obviously continuing rather than just the 3 hours of the Transect drive. You can use this to get occupancy of cats. So for the Blue Mountains, there's a if you were to go to one of those sites, there's a 75% chance that cats are at those sites. Is occupancy, and detection is that when cats are present at those sites, there's only a 25% chance of actually capturing them. So then you can use that information to estimate populations a bit more accurately. You can also use spatial and temporal ways to look at the cats as well, because you are using cameras continuously. So the darker line here is cats, so this is time of day across the bottom. So unlike feral cats, domestic cats are pretty consistently active throughout the day, and in the Blue Mountains in Campbelltown happen to actually increase activity during the day. We've overlapped them against some of our wildlife here. So the blue line is the possum here, so obviously quite nocturnal patterns, and the same for small mammals. So everything smaller than a bandicoot was tagged as a small mammal, because I said before the cameras were mounted for predators, so it was very hard to identify species smaller than bandicoot. There, you can also then count individual cats like we did earlier. So there was 79 individual cats in the Blue Mountains and 116 caught on camera in Campbelltown. And as well as numbers of different things, you can also pick up behaviours. Cats in trees, cats with small mammals, lizards and birds all caught on camera. And pretty fluke pictures as well sometimes, which is pretty cool. Although it's not a very nice thing to see, it was a pretty cool picture. So the findings. So I went through those methods pretty quick, the results pretty quick, because we're looking more at the methods themselves here. So you can see that the Transects and the cameras are taking up quite a bit of, they're covering quite a lot of the LGA. Again, we only looked at the residential areas, and there are teams working on feral cats in those two national parks as well, which we will combine our data with in the near future. So the Transect drives, as I mentioned, can be done in pretty much 40 hours of time, including analysis. The analysis probably should only take 20 minutes, but if you're like me and it takes you 2 hours to find in R that your backslash should actually be a forward slash to make it work, it takes a little bit longer. And the estimate of $700 here is from Tamworth all the way to Sydney, do the Transects and drive back. So might be a bit less if you're working in your own area. Cameras, on the other hand, are quite expensive up front. They do take quite a lot of time to deploy, to collect them, and depending on how long they're up for, take quite a lot of time for maintenance as well. So the before data from the Keeping Cats Safe at Home project, which I've just gone through for Blue Mountains in Campbelltown, are... I lost where I was at. They were only up for 2 months, so you only had to go and collect them. Whereas I currently have the during stage up, and they were up for the whole 12 months. So I'm having to go every 8 to 10 weeks to change batteries and SD cards to maintain them for that period of time. They're just about to be collected, and then the after cameras are also just about to go out. And image tagging, if you've ever tagged images, takes quite a lot of time. Cindy mentioned earlier today about if you've got some spare time to do some fun. Image tagging. Hopefully in the near future AI can help us with this a lot quicker, but at the moment I do know a lot of people are working on it, but it's not quite there yet and does take quite a lot of time. So from the cameras, obviously you can get occupancy and detection rates. You can look at overlap with not just cats. So there was 4,000 events of cats, 116 individuals, and you can also pick up your non-target species using cameras as well, not just the cats. So, which method do I choose to quantify cats? Again, it's a very important question. Do I use distance sampling along transects? Do I use remote sensing cameras? Pretty much both of these methodologies are valuable for quantifying free-roaming cat populations, and they depend on which of the resources that you have available. The council staff in the areas that I do my Transect drives come along, as you've seen in one of those pictures earlier, and actually training to do this themselves so they can continue this well into the future after my project's over, which is awesome. It makes it more sustainable, and so the councils are now actually doing these themselves. They only take 4 days every 6 months, for example, is what we're doing now. So distance sampling along transects, remote sensing cameras. Why don't we do both? Which we've heard a lot of today. No matter what you guys are doing, if it's working, continue. Obviously, multiple methodologies at once can give you more data, but as long as you're using the same scientific approach before, during, and after your projects, it doesn't really matter. That's all. Thank you.